Our guest speaker for today, architect Leena Kumar, comes from a family of professionals and nationalists, which includes her great-grandfather, Sir R.V. Sabnis, who rose to become the Diwan of Kolhapur under the Sahus Chhatrapati Maharaj of Kolhapur. And he had a big hand in spreading education in the state. Architect Leena graduated in architecture from the Bangalore University and set up an architectural practice called Kumar Consultants in 1990. The firm has worked through several projects from hospitality, residential to commercial, institutional, and healthcare. Her projects emerge from a very firm principle that architecture has a very large impact on human behavior and the collective community. As a substantial contributor to sustainability, architecture goes beyond the physical and the quantifiable to address sustainability in terms of aesthetic comfort, community spaces and habits, lifestyle and inclusion, art and design sensibility, and economic affordability. With a keen interest in community building, she has collaborated with the Mysore Urban Development Authority and Anna Swami Mudaliar General Hospital to provide housing and healthcare facilities to the poorer sections of the society. As the chairperson of the IIID Bangalore chapter, she designed spaces of two metro stations in Bangalore, the Mahatma Gandhi and the Swami Vivekananda metro station, to convey the life, philosophy, and contribution of these two Newton citizens. She was on the core technical committee of the Indian Green Building Council of November 2015 at the Green Building Congress at Gandhinagar. She is currently the chairperson of the IIA Karnataka chapter and was the convener of the IIA Centenary NatCon 2016 held at Bangalore on the theme, Imagining the City. Architect Leena was also awarded the Glitz Honor Award and the Wade Award for commercial interiors. Her firm was one of the 9 designs shortlisted from 427 entries received for the Global Design Competition for the National War Memorial at New Delhi in December 2016. And their design idea was shortlisted in the Nerolac Breathing City National Competition in April 2017. And today she is here with us to enlighten us about the same prestigious project. So without much delay, let me welcome architect Leena Kumar. Request you to please take over, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Nice to address students because, you know, from the present, you are the future, and one day you will take over from where we all are now. And we really look forward that you bring for the country a much better place, a much better nation, a much better quality of life. So what I'm going to speak about today is the National War Memorial. Okay, so this was an international design competition on the National War Memorial. And if you really understand, you know, what a war memorial is, if you look at the history of a nation, it always goes from the past to the present to the future. And if we all have to come together as a collective and as a people to understand why we are what we are today, and to really study about what we all can become tomorrow, it's important for us to understand what made our country what it is today. And once you understand that, really you can do a lot of work that's a lot more meaningful in any field, whether it's architecture, whether it's art, whether it's music. And it all begins with the understanding of history. So when you talk about a war memorial, you know, there's a very nice saying by John Maxwell Edmonds that you can read here. When you go home, tell them of us and say, for your tomorrow, we gave our today. So the idea of a memorial is really to celebrate and to understand the number of lives that have gone past, that have sacrificed themselves before us in order to give us our freedom today. And before we started this, we really did a lot of study into a war memorial, into what does it really represent? Why is it so significant? Why is it so important? And when you study that, you really see that amongst all architectural pieces, perhaps a memorial is one of the most important, in the sense that even if you visit any country, you go outside India, you go somewhere else, there's one thing you'd like to visit is a war memorial, because from there you begin understanding the history of the place. And after that, everything about the country begins to make sense. So this was a National War Memorial, and it was to be placed in Lutyens, Delhi, in an extremely significant site along the Rajpath Marg. And you have the Gateway of India, then you have the Chhatri, and in line with that was the War Memorial. It was it was on 26 acres of land, and in one of the most significant areas of the nation, in one of the most significant roads, I think that every Indian will remember, because you see the Republic Day parade, you see the Independence Day parade, and it's all about this fantastic road full of history with the Parliament House, and it dates back to, I think, more than 100 years. And now, of course, is the great controversy about, redoing this whole area. I personally think it's a good one. So we began with doing a study of the whole space. And we said, okay, this is in a very significant area. And we did a study of Delhi, of Lutyens, Delhi. And from there, we see that all of Lutyens, Delhi really is based on the hexagon. And his whole master planning, his whole system of gardens and everything is on the hexagon. So we began with the symbol of a hexagon. And we also said that we as a nation, we as a people, we have a lot of symbolism in our religion and in our day-to-day lives. Everything is symbolic. So if you see any of our festivals, it's symbolic. And as Indians, we don't have Mother's Day, we don't have Father's Day, but we have so many of our religious days where we, where we think about our ancestors, where our parents are of prime importance on a particular day, where we really delve into all of it. And as a people, we are very symbolical. This is the design of it. This is the India Gate, and this is the Chhatri. And we'll come later, when we design a central monument around the War Memorial that we proposed. Our symbolic element fit within the India Gate, and within what we had designed was a Chhatri. We'll come to that later. Well, we began, of course, with the people of our country. What is it that we represent? What kind of a people are we? And it was important that we did a design that really tied up to the nation. It was not something to be borrowed from anywhere. It had to be completely rooted to the people of India. It had to be solemn, and it must have history and information. Symbolism, ceremonial. This is the site. It forms part of a hexagon, and there were 2 lawns. So together, this whole area was about 26 acres of land. This is the very famous Janpat Marg. And in the center, right here, in line with the India Gate and the Chhatri, we had a big memorial arch. On either side of it, we had our memorial walls. And this national memorial was for all the defense. It was not just it was, the army, it was the navy, it was the air force. And we thought it could be, each one could be dedicated to one of the forces, or we said, if you have many of them, it could be dedicated to each particular war or a couple of wars together. So we gave them a choice, and we also distributed it into 6 areas, 6 zones, because we thought if you had everything into one, it might be just an overload. It's like going to a museum, and sometimes it gets a little too much. All of our memorial areas, we had begun with the concept of, we had the lotus, we had the mandala, the spiral, the shell, the chakravyuha, and the flower of life. And in between this, we had this is the memorial arch. And we had an area over here where you could go listen, and there would be a lot of audio visuals where you could listen to the history of India, where you could listen to the wars, and perhaps you know, the memorials and what each one of them really represented. So symbolism played a very important part of our design, but I'll go into the whole design itself. So this was one of them. This was the lotus. It was contained within a hexagon, and this is a Buddhist symbol. You find this symbol in many of our religious manifestations, and not that the whole place was meant to be, you know, religious or affirming to anything like that. But as Indians, these symbols have been a part of our growing up. I would say it's been a part of our everyday lives. We see it everywhere, and very subconsciously we identify with these symbols. So this was one of them, which was the lotus, and it's really a symbol of strength in the middle of adversity, which is all what the war is all about. These were all the memorial walls, and you know, we had inscriptions on either side of it, and it all always pointed out to the center, which really is the soul, and we had always a water body in this. So if you looked at it, this is one of the views of the walls. The scale was kept down to not more than 5 feet, and that was also a requirement, because the war memorial was not supposed to take away from any of the other existing historical structures along that very important Janpat Marg. So one of the brief was that it must not be more than 1.5 meters in height. We went down a little bit, so we could have this at about 1.6 meters, but we kept it to a human scale, because in this memorial, we thought everybody should be able to read very closely the names of everyone who has given their lives, everyone who's lost. And you could also add some flowers, maybe some candles. So it becomes a lot more personal. And we didn't want the walls to be very tall. We could have taken the whole site itself, you know, 4 or 5 feet below ground and had very tall memorial walls. But we thought as a concept, it should be to a human scale. It should be something that everybody could stand and read very closely. So you feel closely connected, and it's not just some names that are, you know, you can't clearly see. It's much above your eye level and so on and so forth. The next one is, this is the mandala. And of course, as architects, I'm sure we all know what the mandala means. It really represents wholeness. It's a cosmic diagram. It's used very often in architectural language. And in this, again, everything really congregates to a central water body. And along this, you know, these are all benches where people can sit. These were water bodies, and along it is a bench. The idea was that if anyone comes here and you want to ponder about having lost a person, or if it's someone that's been close to you, or even if it's not, and it invokes memories of war, of sacrifice, of courage, of a nation, if you really want to ponder about what is it that makes us who we are, what is it that makes our country tick really. And we're quite a complicated nation, but we are, I think in that complication, we're quite a, you know, we're quite a wonderful nation. We are an intelligent nation. We're a diverse nation. And amongst all our complexity, there's such a rhythm of inventiveness. There's such a rhythm of personality, of uniqueness. You know, if you really walk around our streets, every person is so different. We all wear different clothes. We speak different languages. And it's quite a nation, really. So these are all spaces that you could sit and reflect on. This was the mandala. So in all of them, in the middle, we have a water body. And this, of course, was to cool the space. Apart from that, along the side, we had nozzles to mystify the whole place. You know, that was our cooling device, because the place was out open in the sun. Delhi is hot. And in the summers, if you had to go, you had to find some way to cool it. And one way that we thought is we would have just water mist that is positioned right through the entire 26 acres. So in this mandala, this is the seating I was saying. This was a water body. And along the water body, we had seats. It really ramps up from the lawn and it becomes a seat. Every tree that we had planted was with sciography, was to see where the shade could come and how, when you're sitting under it, if you wanted to spend some time contemplating, there was a place to sit that was fairly cool as we could make it, and also under a tree. So this was our seating devices and our seating designs, and we had them spread around this. This was the other one. This is the spiral. And this also, you know, it symbolizes really cosmic rhythm. It's the way the universe really evolved as one of the theories. And in this one, this is all the walls that had the names of all our soldiers, all people whom we have lost. In the center, we had a water body, we had a tree, and there was seating around in the center. So you walked down, you came here, there was some green, but the entire space itself was it was solemn, and that's what it really has to evoke. And this is the design that we had for our spiral. So if you look at it, this is these are all the walls, and along the walls, over here we had seating for people to sit, in addition to what we have in the center. So each one of our spaces really was a different form. So you also don't get fatigued by just seeing walls. Normally, if you go to a war memorial, they're just walls and walls and walls of names that are written. And we broke it down into 6 spaces, each one with a different, with a different design, each one with a different theme, and each one very symbolically, something that we as a citizen could adhere to, could feel one with. And our whole intention was to make this really a war memorial that belonged to India. It's not something that you can take somewhere and transport anywhere else, because then it wouldn't really fit and it wouldn't really make sense to the citizens over there. So this was the spiral, and the seating over here was different. A lot of it, this is the memorial wall, and then it became a seat at the end of it. And these are little places for people to put flowers, candles. This was the space in the center. And this is the wall. This one, we came down a little bit just to make you feel like you're coming down into the center of a spiral. So we came down with steps. And this again is the seating. We use seating that ramps up from the lawn. It becomes a seat. It goes down again. So the whole thing tied up into one. And there was not much of a difference really between landscaping and the built form. The whole thing had to center in as one. So this is just the detail of what we did for the seating. And this was the 2 in the center. The whole idea, of course, was to cool the place and have it much cooler, especially where the seating is. Now, all along these areas, we had solar gardens. It was where it could face the south. It was also an area that didn't have many trees, so it could catch the sun. And it was also so designed that the angle of the solar panels could be changed to track the sun. And the intent was that the whole space was self-sufficient, was self-reliant, and it didn't really need power from the grid. And on 26 acres, there was a lot of space that we found where we could have these solar panels. And, we did this again in the shape of a hexagon. We made it at a much lower level. So people walked past it. People understood what solar meant, so you're just aware of energy when it's at your eye level instead of being somewhere else and tucked away. So we thought this should be really a part of the landscaping itself. And that's how we designed these solar panels, and we call it the solar garden. This was another shape. This is the shell. I mean, we all know about the conch shell. It's an instrument. It's something that during in rituals, you blow the conch to announce, well, very often a war or a prayer that's going to start. And very often it was blown before you went to a war. And this is what this represented, and we had it in two levels. With each one of them, we tried to make every one of them different. So a person's attention is always held. It's not something that's monotonous. And as you spend half an hour or 45 minutes on this, your attention is held and you can walk through the whole thing, because every time you go into another space, it's a different kind of a design that unfolds itself to you. And perhaps it evokes different feelings, always tying up to, national integrity and to the history of our country. So, well, this is just another view, and we have the same seating. This is again the shell, and this is the area you can see. So we had right around the site, we had points of mist. So you use as little water as possible, and you have water vapor into the air just to cool the space. And when it does condense, it comes down onto the lawns. So this is what we tried to show over here, a bit of the mist. And see, if you see most of our memorial walls, this is the space where all the names are written. And above that, we had an area for graphics. So we thought every wall will have murals on top, and the mural would really depict the war that was fought, or it would have inscriptions, or it would detail out the history of what happened, why it happened, and all those who lay their lives down, to which war, which year was it fought. So there's a little more of history, there's a little more of interest than just going and seeing names. Because as time goes on, history goes on, and you don't have a direct connection with the people who've lost their lives, because it could have been 60 years ago, 70 years ago, and as time goes on, it will become 200 years, and the person directly may not have any connection with you. So we thought it's quite important that the walls also have an inscription on top, and this inscription would detail out exactly which war at what date between whom, and these are the people who laid their lives down for it. So the whole experience of the memorial would be a lot more educational also, much more than only reading names. When it's in the near past, everybody relates to it because you remember it, because you were a part of it. In this one, we were just going to show that even the landscaping, even the paths that you go around it, it all tied up to Lutyens' Delhi. So the space kind of integrated and it fit in its location. And this is all the landscaping. And when anything is really maintained by the defense, it's always a beautiful piece. And we thought we can take advantage of that and have a very nice detailed landscaping, where each one of them would have flowers, just flower beds, and you walked around it. And the whole idea should be solemn, it should be peaceful, it should be a space where it just lends itself to your conducting, to how you conduct yourself in a dignified manner. And I believe that's one of the main objectives of architecture. When you design a space and it's well designed, it kind of dictates the behavior of the person who experiences that space. And all this was to lend itself to that. This is the Chakravyuha. This is a formation in the army, and it's supposed to be an extremely deadly formation. And all the armies that use this always would win against their opponents. Well, we don't have these kind of wars anymore, thankfully. But this is, I think, a formation that certainly the defense forces would understand, would feel a oneness with. And so this was another one of the forms that we used. Well, this was the Chakravyuha. And this is the flower of life. So everybody walked here to a central point. And these were raised lawns, and amongst that we had seating along the sides. So we walked down a little bit. We walked down to this space just so we thought we could have some walls a little higher, more than 1.5 meters, and we had mounds. So this was the space, and this was the seating that we did here. So we had raised mounds of lawns, and then we had seating. Well, we tried to put in elements that were within the whole concept, but that were different. So it retains the interest of everyone who comes here as an architectural space, besides only being something that you just read names. So this is what we were saying. This is the space where, this is the walls where everyone's names were carved out. And this wall that went higher up, this would be graphics, it could be inscriptions, it would be writing about the war. And all our memorial walls were designed that way. This is the lotus. So this is the inscription wall, and the portion above was the description of the wall itself. And it was all two-sided. So we said you could add on names as it went on. And see, this is all you walk down to this area, and all these places could also be spaces to sit. This is all really seating all around the trees. And of course, these were the places to sit in the middle of it in the landscaping. Those were the memorial walls. And then there was a ceremonial arch. And this arch is where the Prime Minister was expected to go at every solemn function, or to commemorate, some victories, or commemorate just losses of life, heroic deeds. And what we had done over here, actually a lot of those who were shortlisted, they had sunk this down below this level, so you didn't really see it. But what we had done was, this memorial arch fit exactly within the arch of the India Gate. And within this arch was a chhatri. And we did a great study of this arch. We did a measurement of it. We went to Delhi. We got, detailed drawings of this and of the chhatri. So the memorial arch that we designed was within the arch of the India Gate, and inside this was the chhatri. This really was our design along the whole center. So we thought we should make another monument that's as significant really as the India Gate and the chhatri itself. And this is the area where we had all the memorial walls. So this was the design for the memorial wall. And we said, what material do we use it? It must go with what has happened, the language of it, but it should also be symbolical that time has moved on. So really we did this arch in concrete, and we connected them with glass. So it forms a fairly solid mass. And in the concrete, we said we would have inscriptions of all the prime ministers and inscriptions of the heads of defense staff. So anyone who comes under this, you really read all that. And we had a copper dome on top with also inscriptions of really symbols. And that's how we arrived at this. So this has 4 arches, and the 4 arches combine to hold this on top. And they're tied together with a trellis of glass. So we used the material of glass and concrete because we wanted it to symbolize time. The rest of it is all sandstone. In fact, all our walls are all of sandstone. And under this is the memorial chakra. So this is the place where the Prime Minister would lay the wreath, and this is where all the ceremonies would happen. And this was the design of the memorial arch. This chakra was made in copper on a granite pedestal. And this really is 1 meter high. Sorry, this is, the pedestal is 1 meter, this is 2.5 meters. So really in scale, if you see this is 3.5 meters in height, this chakra. And that was the height of this to fit inside the India Gate. So this was by and large in concept our memorial walls. This is inscriptions, and this is where the person's name was. And we had little places where you could keep a flower or you can keep a diya. This was the seating, and all our landscaping was all in forms of hexagons, and we distributed along it flower beds and also benches for people to sit. This was another one of the features that we showed you. This was for the for benches. Close by, in between, see this is the solar park. This is one of our memorial walls. We had an underground space, and above it was just a mound for people to walk. And this space was where you could go and learn about the history of India in terms of all the wars that it has fought to become an independent nation, and what we have fought against the British, what we have fought against all the other invaders who came. So under this was a space where you could go, put on your earphones, or there would be videos, or there would be movies, all to explain the history of the country. And it formed a mound on top so people could walk and they could go across. So this was inside. Under that, it was just a water body. It had benches, and it had places where it had an auditorium, which we haven't shown over here, but that was the intent of the whole space. And also in the hot summer monsoons, you could just, it was a place where people could go and sit inside. And even if you didn't want to hear anything, you could just go and sit there and remember. The whole thing was 25 acres, and what we built was about 6.2 acres. This is the sustainable framework. This is misting, and this was the solar park. So that's what it was. That was our design on the that was the design that we did of the National War Memorial. Well, I think it's all done now. It's finished, but this was our scheme. They only wanted everything to be finished in 4 or 5 months. We were quite sad that it wasn't built, because we thought it was symbolical. It was, so well rooted in its space, in its time. It's something that, well, we thought just fitted into the whole design, into the whole idea of Lutyens Delhi, into the whole idea of a nation, into the whole idea of symbolism. And we did believe that all of this would, it's something that as Indians we could all relate to so well, and so without any difficulty at all. So that was the design. And if there's anything you'd want to ask, any questions you have. Before we conclude, I'll tell you a little bit also about the Indian Institute of Architects.
Sure, ma'am.
So if there's anything that anyone wants to ask, I know it's a difficult project to really ask any questions, because it's an idea. It's
okay.
But well.
Yeah, ma'am. We have a question from a student.
Yes.
They want to know why there are no graves here in the memorial.
There are no graves.
Yeah.
Well, for one thing, a memorial One is, as a custom, I would say a lot of us in our country, we don't have graves, but we cremate.
Hmm.
One thing.
Yes.
Other thing is that this memorial is not really a place where you would have, and even if you did bury, it was not really a place meant to bury people as much as to invoke a certain sense of, of history, of togetherness, of oneness. And if we did have to have graves, it's very difficult also to add on.
Yes.
Uh, this really was not actually a graveyard. Very often is not a memorial. It's a place where a person who is connected to the grave would go.
Yes.
It's not a place where all public would go. And very often, if there's a life that's lost, the family would bury the person in their preferred area as a member of the family, unless national importance, unless you are the person who's lost is a prime minister or a president, then there's a space for the person at the national level. But otherwise, usually it's at the family level.
Yes.
It's not national.
Yeah, ma'am.
Family would treasure that much more, I think, than at a national level. It's more impersonal and yet personal at a very different level. It's personal at a national level as citizens, where we want to relate to a war and we want to pay our respects to the people who lost their lives. But it's not so personal in the sense it may not be someone directly related to you. So there are no graves in this. It's really meant to be a space that is solemn, that would invoke memory, and that would create a unitedness amongst the people of a nation. It also is meant to create unity and to make people understand as years go on what is it that made us what we are today.
Yeah.
I think that is, just to intervene, I think that is really a very good understanding required for the project. As Madam rightly said, it is the personal relationship or, a personal attachment which brings the idea of more like a grave, whatever it is. And this is of a public importance.
Yes.
Where public are not feared to come to the place, but they come to the place as a, place of respect.
Yes.
I think that was a good question to understand the project.
Yeah.
Do you have further questions?
Yes, sir. One more, sir. Ma'am, our students also do participate in a lot of projects. Can you give some tips, how to approach a competition project?
Well, there are two kinds of competitions. One would be an ideas competition and one would be a live competition. And in both of them, how you approach it is quite different. Because when it's an ideas competition, very often the person who's floating the competition is also could be looking at an idea that may be a little fetched also. It doesn't have to be implementable right now. But it's an idea that could evoke or could result in other ways of implementation. And in those cases, you have to let your imagination run wild. It could be, in an ideas competition, you're looking for solutions that are out of the box. In that, you approach it as ideas and you have to do a lot of research into the problem itself. And let's say there's an ideas competition that IA has just floated on post-pandemic architecture. And we had some great ideas that came up. And all of it was, we also had on an essay writing competition on this. And since you're asking me this, I'll say one of the observations that we made were that when architects were giving ideas or when architects were writing essays, everyone looked at it as a problem and therefore you must find a solution. Like an architectural problem, you're given a problem, you have to find a solution. But what was not there was, when you look at post-pandemic architecture, and if you're looking at ideas, it's really beyond a problem of just, a pandemic and most people. It's much beyond that. It's ideas where you look at a much more nationalistic level, in the sense, okay, this is a problem, right? So we have the pandemics in our country. You have migrants, you have people leaving. What is the psychological impact that this has on people? If you have migrants going, what is it that they're going to leave from their place of work thinking? What will they think? They're going to be thinking that when you needed us, you kept us. When you needed us, you paid us. And when a time got bad, you just said, you didn't bother how they would reach home. You didn't bother, is it safe for them? Where will they stay? Where will they eat? And what's the psychological impact of that on citizens of our nation? Wouldn't it invoke anger? Wouldn't it invoke a sense of depression? And with all that, your nature becomes disruptive. And then we start saying, why are we like this? Why are people so violent? What do you expect? So when you're looking at ideas, you've got to approach it much more than a problem and a solution. Because as architects, really, it impacts everybody much more than a problem and a solution. There is a psychological aspect to it. So when it's an idea, you've got to look at it in a much wholesome way, more than a problem and a solution. If you're attempting a competition that is a real competition, when I say real, I mean it's going to be built, then yes, it is a problem. And what you have to do is look at a solution to that problem. No one's expecting you to look really beyond that, perhaps, because it's going to be built. And then your focus is much more, it's clearer. In a sense, it's much more limited. Although, of course, now when I meet students, I think, as architects, we do have to look at beyond just architecture, beyond just the problem. And whatever we build does have a psychological impact, and that has to be looked at. So even when we did this, the whole intent of why we took symbolism was because, it's not just walls to remember. These are spaces that have a psychological impact on you. When you go there, you must feel connected. It must draw you. It must invoke a sense of some pride, of some nationality. It's not just a utilitarian problem of, someone's lost their lives and you go, then you just have those names, then you go home. Not really about that. It's about invoking oneness. It's about invoking a national pride. And that is
yeah. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Are there any more questions, Nehal?
Yeah, I'm done, ma'am. No questions. No more questions.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am, for taking us through the whole journey of such a wonderful project. It surely must have given our students important insight on how to approach a design competition, and also the role of symbolism in design. The entire project truly symbolized our nation and felt connected to the sensibility and emotions of the people of India. We thank you once again. It was a pleasure having you with us. We will conclude today's session now and look forward to seeing all of you tomorrow again at the same time for tomorrow's session.
Neha, I'd like to tell all the students a little bit about the Indian Institute of Architects also. Because I think you would be what, third year, fourth year students. And, time flies. Before you know it, you'll be architects entering the field.
Yes.
And well, it's really an exciting field. It's lovely. You'll never regret it. It's a great place to be. So when you do finish, we have primarily two professional institutions. One is the Council of Architecture, which you need to register in order to. The other is the Indian Institute of Architects, which is not compulsory for you to register. But, any institute really is meant for the people of the profession. And it's quite important that you join this institute, in any professional institute that you belong to, because as only collectively that we can grow together. It's only collectively that you can have an impact on the profession that you are in. And the other thing that the Institute does is, you know, we have many conferences, lectures, we have competitions, and exposure to different ideas, to different thoughts, to different people, to different designs is what is very critical in any field. Because, you know, if you really look at anyone, any one of us, you know, there's a saying, it says that life is long enough for everybody to do whatever you have set out to do. But very often we spend a lot of time and many years of our life in trying to find what it is that we want to do, or what is it that really should be our path in life. We spend time trying to find that. What is it that you like? What is it that you are passionate about? And if you really have to find that path, and those who find it sooner in life are the ones really that have been more successful. Not because perhaps they're any smarter or any more creative, but they found it early and they've dedicated their energies to that path that they have found. So, another reason, you know, why you really have to interact and connect, you don't know where you get that inspiration from. You go to a lecture, you meet a person, you see a design, and something might just click, and you might just say, you know, this is the kind of design I want to work on. This is the impact I want to have, or this is what I don't want to do. Whatever it is, it's a path of self-realization, and that comes with exposure. It's extremely important for you to be exposed to different people. I would say that's one important reason for you to join an institute, because you get information on all this and you can become a part of it. The other thing also is that, you know, as the nation is growing, projects are going to become bigger, projects are going to become much more complicated, bigger in scale. And you would probably want to bounce off ideas from people. You would want to bounce ideas off people. You would want to share information, share knowledge, or if you're in trouble, you want to exchange ideas with someone, with thoughts with someone. So with all that, being a part of an institution is quite important. And so when you finish, be a part of it. It's good. I mean, you know, after all, it is our institution. It's not yours, it's mine, it's only ours. And you know, very often if you see the strength of a nation, many times an institution that builds it, you see the health of an institution, and you can very often say the health of a country itself. So when people participate in their profession, it becomes stronger. And I think it's important that we all come together, we stay together, we learn from each other, because from there we start growing. So I would say it's quite important for students to join the institute.